bogus bank account. The company had agreed to pay a deposit for a machine to a legitimate company in China. However, the Irish firm then received fraudulent emails purporting to be from the Chinese company and transferred the money on May 27th. They were notified by their bank of the invoice to redirect fraud on May the 8th, and after liaising with Gardaí, the money was returned. That's your news update. We'll have more in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For great value home insurance, go online to the aa.ie.
Outbreaks of rain will continue to extend eastwards across the country tonight, lows of between 7 and 10 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Hi there everyone, great to have you with us on this Tuesday evening. Paul Rouse is on the way after 8 o'clock. He is going to finish up his series on the history of sport. So tonight he will take us through from 1970 through until the present day. So Paul Rouse on the way after 8 o'clock. Really fascinating what's happened in these past 50 years on a host of levels. So tune in for that after 8 o'clock. This hour, John Giles will join us. It being a Tuesday, I know this is sacrilege, but we wanted to get John on to pay tribute to the late Tony Dunne. He'll be back on Thursday as well, John, picking another best of 11. But he'll pay tribute to Tony Dunne, who has passed away at the age of 78. And then Kenny Cunningham with us on the football show. He will talk about everything from how Premier League players have handled the various controversies surrounding the pandemic to his thoughts on no crowds at Bundesliga games. And then he'll give us a fascinating insight into life as a captain, including when Roy Keane came back into the squad in 2004, and at that stage Kenny was the captain. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. The reason we're talking to Kenny Cunningham about captaincy is Wayne Rooney wrote an article over the weekend which was very good about various aspects of being a captain, and so we thought we'd ask Kenny about that as well. That is the thinking. We have Adrian Barry with us. Hello.
Evening, Joe.
Great to have you with us. Richie McCormick, good evening to you.
How are you, Joe? I'm kind of jealous that you get to talk to Kenny. I got reminded the other day that he provided the assist for one of the greatest goals ever scored in the Premier League, that being Tony Yeboah's fantastic effort against Wimbledon back in, 1995? It was Kenny's wayward header that landed in the lap of Tony Yeboah before he danced through the Wimbledon defence to score that cracker.
I think he has a long history. He has a long history of setting up brilliant goals by his own account.
Kenny's a witness to history all through the Premier League, not through any great fault of his own, but he's often been there for the great moments and contributed to them in his own little way.
If I'm not mistaken, after that goal goes in, Kenny is bawling his teammates out of it. Pretty sure that's exactly what happened.
It's all his fault as well. I was looking at it the other day. It's like there's a hopeful ball in. I think it's from John Pemberton, who was playing right full that day for Leeds.
What would you have done, Richie? He heads it back into his path, and Tony Yeboah does what he does, and it's unbelievable.
You got to clean him out, Adrian. You got to clean him out.
There's a simple rule for every centre half in that situation. You don't head it back. You don't head it back into the centre of the pitch.
It was one of those though, Joe. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those. The ball was one of those. It was an awkward. It was an awkward height. To give Kenny his absolute dues, it was a tough. He was like on the back foot. It was marginally over the point where he could get any purchase on it. Okay. So there was almost nothing much he could do. Only give it to Tony Yeboah.
Let us never give Kenny his dues or be fair to Kenny on this show. Can you not have that as a working rule? No. So we'll talk to Kenny between 9 and 10. Loads of interesting stuff in that chat. I was recommending Fleabag to him as well. He was on recently on the Culture Hall of Fame going through his favourite British comedies, and he hadn't seen Fleabag. Have either of you seen Fleabag?
I saw bits, but not a fan.
Oh,
your one's too posh. Your one's too posh for me, if I'm being honest.
You're just plain wrong about that one, Richie.
It's fine. I'll happily be on the right side of history.
What's the setup, Joe?
The setup is we have, I don't want to give too much away, but the protagonist, the lead, she's about 30 years of age. The actress's name, I have it jotted down here because
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes, well done. I can't remember her name. So she wrote this whole series and she stars in the main role, and she's 30. Her life's careering a little bit off kilter. There's been an incident with a friend, convoluted and tricky family situation, but ultimately it's still a comedy and has certain quirks, like she breaks the fourth wall quite a bit. She's talking to you a lot during the series. It's pretty edgy, it's pretty good.
There's that I can see why that appeals to John Malloy.
Let me tell you, not just John Malloy, let me tell you about Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So Amazon looked at Fleabag seasons 1 and 2, and again, you should watch them. And they said, you're actually quite brilliant. So how about for this year, next year, and the year after that, whatever you write, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, we get to make and put on Amazon. And she agreed to do that. And for that service, they are paying Phoebe Waller-Bridge €18 million per year.
Good Lord.
That's a retainer that you don't often hear. I mean, maybe you do.
She better not get writer's block.
You hear that in the writing world quite a bit, don't you? That sort of book advance.
Offer, yeah.
Jesus, that's a pot of cash.
That is a pot of cash.
She's in the running, I heard, as well, to do one of the next Bond films, or she'd been spoken about. As much kind of credence as you can add to those rumours, but that's the territory she's occupying now.
Anyway, Kenny said he would check it out, so I recommend
Started
it.
into Gangs of London. Anybody seen Gangs of London?
No.
Richie? Yeah, started into it there in the last couple of weeks. God, it's violent. Very good, though. The fight scenes, I made this point on Twitter the other night, the fight scenes are a bit like they were, it's kind of odd because the rest of it is so good and the fight scenes stand out so much. It looks like they've been directed by Vince McMahon, but they're slightly bizarre. Everybody's suddenly an expert in parkour and jiu-jitsu and all these sort of sports. But it's good, very good. Check it out. Joe Cole, not that one.
Yeah. He was on OTBAM a while back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was on the Now TV Culture Hall of Fame, Joe, to give it its full name.
Yes, indeed.
Interesting guy.
So also this morning, just to send you in various directions, listeners, before we get into the news round, we do have a new app. I'm sure you're aware of that at this stage, but if you weren't, we've launched a new app in the last week. A lot of work has gone into it. It is your one-stop shop for all things off the ball. Just search OTB Sports in whatever app store you are using and you'll find us there. It's all free, 40 hours of content a week, articles, podcasts, videos, news, etc. is all waiting there. The Joe Malloy section is under construction for those of you inquiring. We'll get to that very soon. But you'll be able to find this morning David Myler and Nathan was on OTBM as well alongside Owen, and they were picking their Liverpool 11 of the Premier League era. So you can catch David Myler's rationale behind these choices. Here is the Myler, who's a big Liverpool fan obviously and played against many of these players. He went for, as the best Liverpool team of the Premier League 11, he went for, and by the way, no Robbie Fowler in this, before you're wondering. Alisson in goal. He went for Alisson in goal. He went for Trent Alexander-Arnold. He went for Virgil van Dijk, Jamie Carragher in the centre of defence, Andy Robertson at left back. His midfield three was Steven Gerrard, Xabi Alonso and Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson, not sure. And
could be player of the year this year, Joe.
I understand that. Mohamed Salah, Luis Suarez and Sadio Mane. And Nathan, I think, did his team, which was along similar lines, but he had Steve McManaman in ahead of Jordan Henderson. I think I would come down on Nathan's side on that one as well, I have to say. And then he had Robbie Fowler in ahead of Sadio Mane as well. Liverpool fans, come at us, give us your thoughts, 53106. I mean, they're difficult choices. I'm not going to talk down Jordan Henderson or Sadio Mane. I feel like Robbie Fowler, if you're talking Liverpool of the Premier League era, Fowler and McManaman, you know?
I think it depends on the criteria. Like, if you're talking about who are the best footballers, there's just no conversation about it. But, like, Jordan Henderson will go down in the annals of time when they eventually get it done as being, like, the man who ended the drought. So, it's hard to argue.
He's not the man who ended the drought. He just happened to be captain. He just happened to be captain.
If he's player of the year...
I don't think he should be player of the year either, actually. I mean, I'm getting into a point now where I'm talking down Jordan Henderson, who I really like and think is brilliant. But
he's like Lee Cattermole has done well for himself, is what we're talking about.
I just think there's been a period with Liverpool where each month one of their players has been flavour of the month and celebrated, and around the time the voting was happening for PFA Player of the Year, Jordan Henderson was rightfully getting his dues. You know, he's brilliant in interviews. He's turned himself into just a consummate player. So much more quality even in the last year or two than he had in previous years. So I get it. But I still think Virgil van Dijk is the player of the year, even though he hasn't been as good this year as the previous year. He's just been that good again.
Yeah, I saw they were also having the debate about who was the most influential Liverpool player in the modern era, whether it was Van Dijk or Steven Gerrard, and they were at odds on that one as well.
Oh, it's Gerrard, no?
Well,
Liverpool. Let me put it this way: Liverpool would have won zilch, without Steven Gerrard in his era. I think this Liverpool side, Van Dijk arriving was absolutely crucial. But if Van Dijk left, they could get somebody else in and still probably win a few things. Whereas Liverpool without Gerrard would have won zilch. I'll put that to you.
The thing about Gerrard is, and the thing about Van Dijk, or they differ, is Van Dijk is a player who, by his quality, makes those around him better, or at least appear better. Whereas Steven Gerrard only really had a certain interest in making himself look and appear better. I don't think he was necessarily interested in kind of raising the cause of his teammates. If Stephen Gerrard got to be the hero, that was the be-all and end-all as far as he was concerned.
There's a popular opinion, obviously, on this side of the water, which David Meyler's less exposed to, Richie's one. And then there's a popular opinion about Stephen Gerrard on the other side of the water that has him too far the other direction, as far as I'd be concerned. Like, I don't know. Look, it's tough to have the debate, given that Virgil van Dijk could end up playing for Liverpool for another 5 or 6 years. What age is he? Late 27, 28?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, Gerrard's had a full career there, which is a very fair point.
And the slip, obviously, is it goes in as its own pebble on the scales of what's the right and wrongs of this thing.
Yeah, it's an impossible debate to have. Gerrard was there from, the age of 20 till 33 or 34. Van Dijk isn't there that long, so it's probably an impossible debate. Joe in Concealy says, it breaks the fourth wall. This is me on Fleabag. Technically, so does Mrs. Brown's Boys. I wasn't using that as a selling point, as in
another one,
the fourth wall, therefore it's brilliant. I was just trying to describe it to Adrian Barry and just saying, amongst various characteristics and modes of operandi, it breaks the fourth wall. I wasn't saying it breaks the fourth wall, so it's really good.
It's like a posh Generation X Saved by the Bell.
What were the great fourth wall break-ins?
Saved by the Bell.
Go on, Richie.
Saved by the Bell, definitely. Zach Morris with his time.
The one that stands out, obviously, is the Kevin Spacey
House of Cards.
House of Cards, and I watched back the full original, which is the UK version, is on YouTube, and I can't recommend enough that you go back and watch it. But it was one of the originals that did that probably more effectively than the newer version.
Really?
That for me is probably
I'd say that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
I've never watched the original, actually. I just felt I'd seen.
Do, Joe. Do, really? Please. Okay.
Yeah, the original's really good.
Because I see it a few times. It pops up on Netflix a few times, and the lead actor is a bit dour looking, and I just think,
it's exceptional.
Is it?
And
it's
it's very short, Richie. I don't know if you've seen it. I think that the entire series is very short, so it's not going to be, even if you're wasting your time, it's not going to take up a huge amount of time. But very good.
Did Zach Braff break the fourth wall in Scrubs? He was narrator. I don't think he.
No, he narrated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a device I always enjoy, I have to say. Just putting that out there. I was like a good fourth wall break.
Listen, as I said at the very start, Joe, nobody watching or listening to us this evening is in the slightest bit surprised about your hoity-toity approach to media.
I actually don't even know what you're getting at there. What do you mean?
There's just something very highbrow about, we're all getting a look at the fourth wall. It's come on. This doesn't need explaining.
Okay, I'll take that on the chin. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm trying to have a go here, but I mean,
you go for it. So look, that's all the meaningless nonsense taken care of. We have John Giles coming up at 7:30. We've Paul Rouse with his History of Sport series, and a little bit on the future for sport. The internet is changing our lives at a phenomenal pace right now. What does it mean for sport in the 21st century? We'll try and touch on as well with Paul Rouse. This is the final instalment of his series. So week 10, that is your complete lecture series done on medieval sport right through until 2020. And then, as I mentioned, Kenny Cunningham on the way between 9 and 10. So that is the running order for this evening. I mentioned Tony Dunne. Richie, that's where you're starting your news round?
Yeah, the sad news that broke last night, and the FAI and Manchester United have led the tributes to Tony Dunne, whose death was confirmed at the age of 78. The fullback was part of the United side that won the European Cup in 1968. By that stage, he'd been a regular in the side for about 6 years and already won 2 league titles and an FA Cup in 1963. Dunne signed for United in 1960, a week after helping Shelbourne win the FAI Cup here at home as a teenager. He also won 33 Ireland caps, captaining his country on 4 occasions. Recently on Off the Ball, John Giles named Dunne in both his all-time Ireland and Manchester United 11s.
But Tony was very similar in temperament to Dennis Irwin. Did the job quietly, but terrific. He was very quick, Nathan. He played the Manchester United's great years. He was in the Manchester United team when they won the league in 1964. And
played
again later, the 2 times that they won at that particular time, and then in the Champions League, or what was then the European Cup, at that particular time. And again, a bit like Dennis, very quiet. He played with great players like Law Best and Charlton. Didn't try to seek the limelight in any way, but really got the job done. Very like Dennis, deceptively quick. Used the ball well. No fuss about him. And it wasn't a big lad, but good in the air. Complete player. No, I never saw anybody give Tony Dunne the run around.
So we're clearly talking about one of Ireland's greatest ever players here. So we'll get John Giles on to expand on his tribute to Tony Dunne. 535 appearances for United over 13 years. That puts him comfortably inside the top 10 all-time appearances for United. And as John mentioned there, part of the 68 team, FA Cup team is 63, which had John Giles in it as well, and 2 league wins in the 60s to boot. So that's Tony Dunne who we'll pay tribute to. And interestingly as well, Adrian, we can talk to John about this, but at 5'6", he was amongst the first of that new breed of fullback that we're increasingly familiar with now, i.e. it used to be just 4 centre-halves, big lads who kick lumps out of everyone across the back 4. And around Tony Dunne's time, fullbacks started getting more mobile, getting forward more, and he led the way. Bobby Charlton said he was the quickest fullback in Europe in his day as well.
God, that's sensational. There was, I might have mentioned this actually the last time I was on, happened to, as we're all doing at the minute, watch one of these archive games. It was a 66 FA Cup quarter-final, Manchester United against Preston, and it ended up being a draw, and the first leg was on air, one of the channels the other week, and it was all a lot of those players you just mentioned there, including Tony Dunne, and it was mad you hear all these names all the time. Shea Brennan was playing, like Bobby Charlton was there best, Alan Kelly was in goal for Preston, like all these names that just trip off the tongue. But actually, how many times have you ever sat down and watched games involving any of them, including John Giles? Like, the opportunity is so rare because there's so much other sport going on. But I watched it, and yeah, it was the Dennis Irwin example definitely stands out, certainly from watching that game. Just quietly went about his business, not a hugely player, very different time obviously to play your football, but yeah, very sad.
Yeah, John Giles on the way this hour. Raheem Sterling was on Newsnight, Richie.
He was, and he says English football lacks diversity in coaching and backroom teams. The Manchester City and England forward appeared on Newsnight last night, where he discussed racism and the Black Lives Matter movement. Meanwhile, Kick It Out chair Sanjay Bandari says that English football authorities need to back clubs and players who make anti-racism gestures when play restarts next week.
Did you see this, Rich? Was Sterling on last night? I missed it.
He was on last night, yeah. I just saw the Twitter video that they put out afterwards, but he came across quite well.
Okay, I must watch it back, because what he's saying is irrefutable when you look at coaching and backroom teams. I mean, it is just extraordinary. We've been, I don't know, like I was going to say we've been talking about this for years, but actually everybody's been talking about this for years. And we're at a point now in 2020 where across the 92 teams in English football, there are 4 BAME managers across the 92 teams. You take the Premier League, 33% of players are BAME, and it's been that way for a long time. We've had, I think it was about 20% of players BAME in 92 when the Premier League started. It's now grown to mid-30 percentages. So when you have 4 black managers across 92 teams, it's just extraordinary how this continues. I mean, they're going to have to look at this in some way. They haven't addressed it at all, Adrian, and it's been a problem which has been highlighted for years. I mean, for well over a decade, this has been talked about as a major discrepancy. We had Aaron Cunningham, the former Armagh footballer who's living in New Jersey at the minute, and on OTBM last Friday morning we had a great conversation about it, including the point about what it actually is racism, like engaging with a conversation about what racism actually is. And like, you have to look at statistics like that and believe that they fall smack bang into that. It's too easy to brush them off and make the excuses that are made regularly. I think it certainly falls into that category. Rich, news on League One and League Two?
Yeah, they're both done and dusted. Clubs in League One and League Two have voted to end their seasons early. The bottom 2 rungs on the EFL ladder will be decided on an unweighted points per game basis, with promotion and relegation retained. Coventry and Rotherham are promoted automatically to the Championship, while Swindon Town have been crowned League Two champions, and they'll be joined in League One next season by Plymouth and Crewe. The playoffs in both divisions will get underway next week. The Championship resumes playing on June 20th.
Joe in Wicklow says Sean's show, as in Sean Hughes and Channel 4 back in the day, preceded all those fourth wall breaking shows, although somebody else says fourth wall breaking originals were Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah. And Oisin Langan pointed out as well that Michael Caine does it in Alfie a lot, and I think he does it a little bit in Italian Job too.
Modern Family we haven't mentioned.
But like, why would we?
That's kind of different because it sets them up as talking heads.
Yeah,
it's not like turning the camera on well.
I do appreciate the point, but they are.
So
there's an understanding of the cameras. Joe, come on.
There's a text in from Paul and Cork. I don't think we even need to debate that, Adrian. I just think that's
that is up for debate. Yeah.
Kenny Cunningham's been a constant through some of the Premier League's great moments. Yeboah, Beckham, Di Canio.
He could sell a DVD.
How many assists does Kenny Cunningham have to great goals? We should check that out and put it to him. Is it Jamie Carragher or Richard Dunne who leads the own goal record?
I think it's
Richard Dunne, isn't it? There we go.
Separate answers. There's one of those two. So Jerry Flannery's gone back into coaching.
Yeah, he's returned to the coaching world with Harlequins today. The former Ireland hooker will take up the role of line-out coach under head of rugby Paul Gustard. Flannery's been out of coaching since both he and Felix Jones rejected new deals at Munster 12 months ago. Meanwhile, Chris Robshaw has signed a brief extension at Quins. The club captain was due to depart on July 1st when his current deal expired, but he'll now be able to see out the Premiership season when it resumes.
I will miss Jerry Flannery from punditry, I have to say. He's always brilliant. And this was long the case, not least when he was involved with Munster and they would do the mid-game interviews. And in 15 minutes, he would do better summaries of what was going on than everybody else combined. And you knew he was a brilliant brain when it came to this kind of stuff. So wish him the best of luck. He's got back with Queens.
The most impressive thing about this entire thing is the, what's his name, the head coach, Richie? Gustard.
Oh, Gustard, yeah.
Yeah, so his in the press release, he's calling Jerry Flannery Fla. And Jerry Flannery's calling him Gussie. I mean, how could this end up? It's not going to end bad.
The best one is Gustard in his little blurb refers to bomb, and it needs clarification from the press officer that he's talking about Adam Jones. You're like, all right, fair enough. They're all mates there. It's great.
Galway United, Rich?
Yeah, they're calling for more clarity regarding the financial support and offer to clubs around a return to play. The SSE or Shistey First Division sides say that clarity is due from the FAI later this week. Galway say financial support is required to enable a successful and sustainable return to football in this country. Adam Lallana and Andy Lonergan have both signed short deals with Liverpool. Both players will complete the current season with the Premier League leaders. Lallana and Lonergan's deals are due to expire on June 30th and both will still be free agents come the summer. Meanwhile, Republic of Ireland women's defender Niamh Fahey has signed a new contract at Liverpool as well.
On the Liverpool front, Adrian, what did you make of Jurgen Klopp when he said with Timo Werner, we can't really ask players to take pay cuts or maybe even waive some salary and then spend 60 million on a player? And also when we don't know what our income is going to be, we don't know what level it will pitch back in at. Thought that was weirdly prudent.
Yeah, far too reasonable for a football coach. The Timo Werner one was a really weird one, given that it seemed like he was destined to go there primarily because of their relationship with Klopp. Football clubs giving a toss about spending money seems like very twee idea, very Arsene Wenger type sustainable approach that you had assumed. Jurgen Klopp is the second coming of Arsene Wenger, I think, is what we can conclude from all of this.
Isn't the problem, though, that Wenger really made it look like a terrible, terrible route?
I'm not sure that... I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I mean, totally understand it.
You wouldn't sit down as a manager and to a board and say, I'm going to do what Wenger did in the second half of his career here.
No, but I was full of admiration for what Wenger did in the second half of his career because it was far easier to take the other option. And like he took the route less popular, right? Like he was absolutely lambasted from left, right, and centre over from within and without the club.
Yeah.
I think he's to be admired for it, but it's not going to win you a league.
No, which is not great. I think to be fair, what happened to Wenger, and you'd love to interview him about it and talk to him about it, but I do think, there was such a thing at Arsenal with getting the new stadium built, and everything in terms of spending on the pitch almost went on hold while they got the stadium built. And this was going to really drive them into the 21st century, and this would be the income, and this would be the future. And we'll have leapfrogged the likes of Manchester United in terms of income in various ways. And then the TV money grew exponentially around that period. It just quantum leap grew, and suddenly what you were earning from your stadium wasn't actually that important anymore.
Weren't the owners saying that there was money available, and he was saying, I don't want it?
Yeah, that was always the confusing thing as well. I don't know where the truth lay in that.
He positioned himself as a member of the board who had a position on the bench, which I don't think worked in his favour. I think if he had, as many managers do, separated himself as his own island and operated that way, I think he would have been better off, and probably that second half of his career at Arsenal would be viewed in a slightly warmer light. But the fact that he became essentially an accountant on the bench, I don't think really gave him popularity.
That's up there with Joe's Modern Family hot take.
Is it a bit harsh?
Very harsh.
An accountant on the bench? We don't know the truth. So. I wonder what money was available to him. Like, surely he must have reached a point where he would have thought, actually, this is getting desperate now. I need to spend money. Why would he have resisted that?
Yeah, that's what it's almost like an anti-accountant thing where he really, as a supporter, you should really be like he is certainly one of the, if not the greatest Arsenal manager of all time, given what he did with that club over his years. It'll obviously always get tainted with the latter years, but God, like he only had the best interests of the club at heart. That's why he did what he did. Like the sustainability of the club, rather than short-term success and where do we end up in 5 years, bankrupt.
I know some success would have been good though.
Listen, I mean, if it nobody's saying that. I'm sure he didn't set out to not succeed.
Yeah.
But obviously, not buying players wasn't going to help things. But my view would be that it was easier to buy players.
Yeah, I'd love now with a bit of distance to get his honest take on what happened in that second half. What did go wrong? It'd be fascinating. Last couple of stories, Rich. So Pep Guardiola has a new assistant.
He does. It's Juan Manuel Lillo, who's joined Manchester City as Guardiola's new assistant manager. Lillo coached Guardiola during his playing career, along with several famous names, including Andres Iniesta, David Villa and Yaya Toure. He replaces Mikel Arteta, who left to become, funnily enough, the Arsenal boss in December. And Yas Island in Abu Dhabi has been revealed as the location for UFC's so-called Fight Island. It'll stage 4 cards next month, beginning with UFC 251 on July the 11th. Meanwhile, it's also been confirmed today that a third meeting of Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic will headline a card on August the 15th. Cormier has already said that bout will be his last.
Somebody's texted in anonymously to simply say, Miranda is hilarious. Any Miranda watchers here?
Oh dear God. I'm glad that person's anonymous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for me, pal.
Not for you. France then.
Not one of those.
France are not going to have relegation, is that right?
That is right, Joe. France's highest court has ruled that there should be no relegation from Ligue 1 this season. The campaign was ended early due to the coronavirus pandemic. The PSG crowned champions. It means Amiens and Toulouse will stay in Ligue 1 next term, with the division to be expanded instead to 22 teams. A lucky escape for Toulouse, who were 14 points adrift when time was called on that season.
Okay, and the snooker then finally?
Yeah, Ronnie O'Sullivan still to lose a frame when I started this conversation at the Championship League in Milton Keynes. That has changed. He leads Sam Craigie by 2 frames to 1 in the second match of his winners stage there at Milton Keynes, and later Ronnie O'Sullivan will face Stuart Bingham as part of his campaign as it continues, but he's heading for another victory, a 3-0 win earlier on today over Harvey Chandler.
Okay. Richie, I'm going to be watching you closely to see how much longer you can hold off mentioning the golf this week, because you're running out of time, my friend.
When's Thursday? I can get away with it until Wednesday night.
I want some preview Newsround material tomorrow that we can feast on.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll leave it there for this evening. John Giles on the way. Richie McCormick, thank you.
Mind yourself.
Adrian Barry, pleasure. Thanks a million.
Thanks, folks.
We'll take a short break. John Giles with us in just a moment to talk about the now late Tony Dunne.
Get in there. That's what I pay you for.
I think conceit and arrogance is part of a man's makeup. Perhaps I've got too much.
I believe in a different concept of football to Don.
We don't play in the clouds. If God wanted us to play football in the clouds, he'd have put grass there.
That might mean, aiming for utopia.